Are you ready?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. This meeting is now convened at 5:32 p.m. I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. A quorum of the board members is present in the board auditorium. They are from my right on the platform: Cassandra Ozanne Bandy, Michelle Cruz Arnold, Jeanette Garza Lindner, Angela Lamont Flowers, myself, Audrey Momanai, Rick Campo, Rolando Martinez, and Paulo Mendoza. Adam Ravon will be here shortly. If there are any elected officials in the audience this evening, please stand and be recognized. We will now be joined by a member of the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps to lead our pledges. I would like to ask Board Member Cassandra Ozanne Bandy to introduce tonight's pledge leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Cadet Commander Darwin Rubio is a James Madison High School senior and enters his fourth year in the Navy Junior ROTC program. He has distinguished himself throughout high school and is ranked 69th out of 396 students with a 3.3 grade point average. His commitment to leadership and academic excellence is evidenced by his role as commander of Madison's NJROTC Battalion. Cadet Rubio is an NJROTC drill team, color guard, and honor guard member. He is enthusiastic about serving the community, volunteered for tutoring at Mathnasium, and helped neighbors with home renovation and furniture rearrangement. Upon graduation, he plans to attend the University of Houston and major in psychology. His goal is to one day lead the Juvenile Probation Department. Cadet Rubio.
Please rise for a moment of silent meditation. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Cadet Rubio. At this time, we will hear from all of our registered speakers, both those who signed up to address agenda items and those who signed up for the hearing of the community. We are glad you are here and we look forward to hearing from you. Public comment during school board meetings will only be available to those persons who have signed up to speak prior to the board meeting time per current protocol. Verbal and other disruptions by persons during the school board meetings are not acceptable, as they inhibit the board's ability to conduct business and the public's ability to observe those processes. Persons who participate in such behavior will be given one warning, and if the behavior is repeated, they will be asked to leave the meeting. Today, we have 40 agenda items. Without objection, we will move agenda items 5, which is BDD local, 9, which is DC local, 10, which is DGB local, 11, which is DNA local, 12, which was DNB local, 13, which is DEC local, 14, which is BP local, 15, which is BQA local, 16, which is EHBJ local, and 17, which is DP local, back onto the consent agenda. Hearing no objections, we'll move on. We have 36 registered speakers who will be limited to 1 minute each per board policy, as we have more than 30 people signed up to address the board tonight. We ask that you stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as their identity is protected under the law, but you may name your own child. I ask that you please respect our procedures and the other speakers and end your comments promptly when your time has expired and our timer rings. Our first item held for registered speakers is item 2, teacher evaluations. Will Michelle Williams please come to the microphone? This speaker is also registered for items 10, 13, and 38. Ms. Williams?
Good evening. The purpose of a teacher evaluation is to help the teacher improve his or her practice. We reject pay for performance. We reject evaluation tools that use negative language such as raises concerns and problems through inappropriate channels, is not solution oriented, and some voices concern and problem in ways that are not helpful, that spread negativity. We reject some of the teacher's actions or communications take away from supportive and school climate. Teachers refuse to be HISD's scapegoat, and we reject any evaluation tool that seeks to silence teachers and does not treat teachers with respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ruth Hoffman-Lack. Is Ms. Lack here? Okay.
I'm Dr. Ruth Hoffman-Lack. I'm registered to speak on teacher evaluations. However, I think that I covered most of that in the email that I sent to all of you on Tuesday. Instead, I want to express another concern that I believe you as fiduciaries should be aware of. First, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not giving legal advice. But I strongly recommend that you do speak to an attorney regarding the proposal to send disruptive students to centers, even if it's for timeout, as Mr. Miles described last week. As I understand it, the policy violates the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or IDEA. It's very clear that students enrolled in special education must receive services. This is part of IDEA. They must receive services in the least restrictive environment possible. Removing a student from the classroom, even to a center where the student can watch the classroom on Zoom, is placing the child in a more restrictive environment. The only legal way to remove a child from the least restrictive environment, even for timeout, is to write it into the behavior intervention plan.
Thank you, ma'am.
So you definitely need to have your attorney at
Thank you,
all of
ma'am.
your meetings, because this...
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 5, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy, which is BDD local, board internal organization attorney on first reading. Will Ann Eagleton please come to the microphone? This speaker will be followed by Maria Benzon. Ms.
Hello.
Eagleton.
Hello. I have a concern that you're being penny wise and pound foolish. In the scheme of things, what you're paying Lisa McBride to be here and represent the taxpayers' interest and the board's interest is going to be evaporated by lawsuits, which Ms. Lack is already laying out. Please be thoughtful. You're new here. You don't even know why you might need an attorney. Hold off making this policy change. I'm also asking if maybe you could just slow things down, because this train's moving too fast. It's going to jump the track. We don't need to make all these policy changes. You're acting like the building's on fire and we have to pass these changes to get a fire extinguisher. It's ridiculous. Slow down. Get your bearings. Get your sea legs. Understand what the ramifications of these changes are. Ms. Linder and Mr. Martinez are the only ones who really have any working knowledge of HISD.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Benzon.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Benzon, a former candidate for HISD School Board Trustee in District 5. I am speaking on item number 5 because I believe that the board should not be relinquishing their ability to have representation and advice at board meetings. I urge the board to keep their separate attorney. If you vote yes, then the checks and balances to the system will be limited. The board can continue supporting the superintendent and HISD's high-performance culture. However, at a time when there are many changes in the district, you need resources and experts to help you. There is a lot of legal and policy information out there. Having a legal expert could help you make more informed decisions for HISD students, teachers, and staff. Please protect yourselves, protect us, and vote no to item 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Linda Murray. Is Ms. Murray here? No. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 6, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CDC local, other revenues, gifts, and solicitations, first reading. Will Sam Smith please come to the microphone? This speaker is also registered for hearing of the community. Is Mr. Smith here? No? Okay. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 7, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CH local, purchasing and acquisition, first reading. Will Mindy Wilson please come to the microphone? This speaker will be followed by Jason Wilson. Is this Ms. Wilson?
Just so we're clear, this unelected board plans to increase the superintendent's spending authority by an order of magnitude within 2 months of being appointed? All for efficiency? Is that what Mike Miles said? All of these same policies were in place when he tore apart more than 50 school communities and libraries, and none of those policies slowed him down. This is really a $1 million power grab. There isn't a public school district in the U.S. where any superintendent should make $1 million decisions without public visibility. Even leaders of community and municipal agencies don't have that unchecked power. Some of you center this conversation around corruption and trust in leadership, but it's really about public transparency and local dollars owed to more than 185,000 children. HISD isn't some nonprofit or state-run public infrastructure organization like some of you think it is. Our children aren't your employees, and our money isn't your slush fund. We
Thank you,
demand
ma'am.
more oversight, transparency, and public input from all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Jason Wilson. Mr. Wilson.
All right. Thanks, Ben. After all the bid rigging and other issues we have had to deal with in HISD, Mr. Miles, you have the audacity to ask to spend up to $2 million at a time without board approval. I see you've lowered that to $1 million after all the outcry, which is still ridiculous. This does nothing but decrease transparency into how our tax dollars are spent. During agenda review, you said bad actors are bad actors, and no matter what the spending limit is, it's not going to stop them from acting badly. You also said you wouldn't let your friends or other acquaintances in the district, political interest, or whatever influence your decisions in bidding on the bidding processes and awarding contracts. You said you could be trusted. Well, I don't trust you. Were you not investigated for this very thing as superintendent at Dallas ISD, using influence and intimidation to steer the board in awarding contracts? You even ordered the suspension of this investigation into your actions. The chief compliance officer overseeing your investigation said you contact.
Thank you. Your time is up. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 9, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy DC local employment practices on first reading. Will Christy Brewster please come to the microphone?
Hello, all. Your certified school nurse is yet back again. Board of managers, the chosen 9, just want to speak to you a little bit. A lot of you have said that you were concerned about the educational process for the students of Houston ISD, why you accepted this appointment to this voluntary board. Well, it's showtime now. Show your concern. Vote no for all of these board revision policies. Don't be a part of the setup for this mess up. What mess up? Short-term, shortcut hiring, all come, no certification checked. Don't worry about your application. We're not going to check that either. Limited employee rights to no rights for the employees who may have some consultation concerns. And then the lack of transparency about my money, Houston ISD. So bless your hearts.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that's the Southern translation.
Thank
And
you.
God bless you.
Our next item held for registered speakers is item 10, approval to waive board policy BF local, board policies, and approval of proposed revisions to board policy DGB local, employee rights and privileges, personnel management relations on first reading. Will Daniel Santos please come to the microphone? The speaker is also registered for item 15. Mr. Santos.
Good evening. I am Daniel Santos, Vice President of the Houston Federation of Teachers. I rise to speak on items 10 and 15. The consultation and district advisory committee policies as written are unacceptable. I sit on consultation. I am the co-chair of the DAC. Unlike the board managers, I was legitimately elected to both. On consultation, monthly meetings are necessary to address teachers' working conditions. Our meetings were never an obstacle in the past. In fact, district policies were more equitable because of them. On the DAC, teachers and community members require more than just 3 meetings a year. Our input is vital to strengthen the district improvement plans. The board managers, they claim they respect our voices. Show us. Reject these items as written tonight or amend them as the community demand.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Dewey. Mr. Dewey.
Hello, I'm Andy Dewey. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of HFT.
What?
I'm Andy Dewey. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of HFT. Under the current consultation policy, the one we have right now, this minute, every item such as the proposed consultation policy involving wages, hours, and conditions of employment must go through consultation. This did not happen. This has been presented to you improperly, and your best decision would be to pull from the agenda right now. The superintendent has had 2 months to meet in consultation. He has canceled both meetings. We sent an agenda in July. His response was to rewrite the consultation policy. He is violating policy after policy, law after law. And the union should not be the one to hold him accountable. You hired him. You need to hold him accountable. Because authority without accountability equals tyranny.
Thank you, sir. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 11, approval to waive board policy BF local, board policies, and approval of proposed revisions to board policy DNA local, performance appraisal, evaluation of teachers on first reading. Will Ruth Kravitz please come to the microphone? This speaker is also registered for item 40. Ms. Kravitz? Okay. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 16. Ms. Kravitz, thank you.
I'm so happy to be here, and I promise to speak for a shorter period of time today than I did last time, and I appreciate your patience. I've interviewed hundreds of teachers. There's so much I want to talk about, but I'll talk about just item 9. Sometimes you just know someone's going to be great. The teacher is charismatic and skilled and experienced, and they know how important building trust is to making magic happen in a classroom. But even then, if I was hiring Mary Poppins herself, I would check their references and confirm the information on their applications, because our children matter. We're not just filling classrooms. We should be filling classrooms with people who love and care about our kids, so I should go faster. So it was a shock to hear that the whole process to be dyad contractors takes less than an hour. They're given a sample application to make it easier to fill out the real one. They're fingerprinted, had an immediate background check, and then within an hour, they had a signed contract.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 16, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy EHBJ local, special programs, innovative, and magnet programs. Ma'am, who's at the microphone? Miss Kravitz? Ma'am, I'm asking you, this is your first warning. Please have a seat. Ma'am, this is your first warning. Please have a seat. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 16, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy EHBJ local, special programs, innovative, and magnet programs on first reading. Will Sarah Rivlin please come to the microphone? This speaker is also registered for item number 24. After her will be Sim Kern. Ms. Rivlin, please go ahead.
If I were a magnet parent, I would not feel reassured by the board specifying that only NES and NES-aligned magnet programs can be modified. NES and NES-aligned aren't legally defined terms. They are merely labels made up by and completely determined by Mr. Miles. If he wants to label the entire district NES, he can. If magnet parents didn't trust him and his word before, why should they trust him now? The job description for an HISD teacher apprentice calls for a person who is currently pursuing a degree. No bachelor's or associate's degree is explicitly required. According to the PowerPoint, they can become regular teachers after 4 to 8 weeks. This would be a great opportunity for my seniors who just graduated. They can enroll in a couple night classes at HCC and make $60,000 in a year reading a script. As long as they don't get too emotionally involved in watching children be mistreated, it should be a decent gig.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sim Kern, excuse me.
My name is Sim Kern, and both of my children attend HISD public schools with magnet programs in Houston's East End. My 17-year-old is at Eastwood Academy, a STEM-focused magnet school. My 6-year-old is at Carrillo Elementary, which is a music-focused Vanguard program. And I'm terrified, under Mike Miles' leadership, that my 6-year-old won't have the kind of opportunities that have inspired a passion in my 17-year-old to succeed and go on to UT Austin next year to study astrophysics. A magnet program can be the soul of a school. It attracts teachers and students who are passionate about what they're studying. To deny this type of program only to those schools in the poorest neighborhoods is cruel, racist, and classist. We know the STAR test measures one thing more than any other metric: socioeconomic status. And therefore, by stripping NES schools of magnet programs, libraries, and teachers who are invested in staying there long term, you are punishing children for being born poor. You are saying no music, no fine arts, no engineering or robotics or even...
Thank you, ma'am. Our next item, ma'am, please have a seat. Thank you. Please have a seat. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 19, authority to execute an agreement renewal with the Harris County Juvenile Board. Will Flor Vivar please come to the microphone? Ma'am in the pink shirt, please, this is a warning, please don't disrupt the meeting. Ms. Vivar, please go ahead.
I'm here to demand that my tax dollars not be used to punish children at school. I know the issue is allegedly lack of funds, but Governor Abbott has already spent over $4 billion on cruel and dehumanizing border security measures that only serve to advance his political career because he wants to be president. My tax dollars should be spent on grants for students to join sports or band or fine arts or any extracurricular activity or after-school programs. This has proven to curb behavioral problems. Some of these children might be battling undiagnosed learning disability issues that the school, instead of a punitive measure, should address using preventative measures, not punishment. Keep the libraries and add qualified staff to assess children so that they may receive the appropriate accommodations that will help them thrive in school when they show behavioral problems instead of labeling them as problem children. The schools that you are targeting with this undemocratic agenda are predominantly in Black and brown communities where awareness and access to services for cognitive or learning disability are not addressed due to lack of knowledge of them and lack of resources. My brother is the result of what you want to do in this school.
Thank you, ma'am.
He's currently going to rehab.
Our next, Thank you, ma'am. Please have a seat. Ma'am, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 38, approval of new evaluation systems for teachers. Will Melissa Yarborough please come to the microphone? The speaker is also registered for item 39.
I hope I registered for the right item. I wonder how you can put so much faith in a standardized test to prove that kids have learned what they're supposed to learn. However, you are not requiring all of your teachers to pass a test to prove that they know how to teach. When I was in the 9th grade, I went to a private school, and the principal's brother-in-law needed a job, and his only qualification was limousine driver, so he was my world geography teacher. I didn't learn very much that year, even though I read all the chapters and answered the questions at the end. I made an A+, but I learned very little about world geography. I chose public schools for my children because I trust that they have high standards for the teachers and for the education. And if I want to make this clear, my children are at an NES school, and if they are in a classroom with an uncertified teacher, I'm going to fight you every step of the way.
Thank you, ma'am.
Because
Our next
once
item,
we lose standards in
thank
public
you.
education, there's nowhere else for us to go.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next item held for registered speakers is item 39, approval of certification waiver for certain teachers. Will Jackie Anderson please come to the microphone?
Good evening. Is it quality or quantity that you want? The hiring of non-certified teachers and administrators paints a poor picture of HISD. How does that align with better student outcomes for children? It does not. Research shows that non-certified teachers and administrators have low retention rates. We have been notified of people walking in off the street, simply breathing, leaving out with hiring offer letters. With no background check, they're going to campuses and are pending the background check. But they have had time in the school without the background check. You may be able to force HR to work around the clock, but you cannot force outside entities to do so. Each and every one of you is accountable. Non-certified administrators are not even qualified to evaluate a certified teacher. They don't know content, they don't know pedagogy. You are demeaning the profession, and again, we're holding each and every one of you accountable.
Our next item held for registered speakers is item 40, approval of the August budget amendment. Will Sarah Terrell please come to the microphone?
The budget amendment is the last item on your consent agenda, so you're going to pass it out of exhaustion. Miles asks you for an increase of $77 million in deficit spending. The deficit will go from $168 to $246 million. Cash surplus will correspondingly diminish. Every single number on this $77 million ask is different from last week. Total expenses have dropped $283 million, but the deficit is still increasing substantially. What? Mr. Terry added the effect of legislation, and we're making money off it. Revenues go down $4 million less than recapture expenses. Has Miles clearly stated even what the $77 million extra is for? You can't have your attorney in the boardroom because, resources.
Thank you, ma'am.
How do you spend?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Your time is over. Ma'am, please have a seat. Our last item held for registered speakers is closed session personnel. Will Ashley Prince please come to the microphone? Ms. Prince.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Prince, a certified educator, mother to 5, and children's book author with 15 years of educational experience in private, international, and district experience combined. I'm here today because I was offered a letter for hire for an NES-aligned campus and received a message that something had stopped my eligibility process. I came to Hattie Mae White Center and learned that I was terminated in 2017 by the board for performance upon a leave that I took in regards to the untimely passing of my then 12-year-old daughter. The attached letter that I sent to the board states that I'm writing this letter to serve as a request to propose a rehire status within HISD. I learned on August 8th of this year that a termination letter was sent out in 2017 and signed by a person who fraudulently undersigned it to be my stepmother. It's in my personnel file. I've attached proof of my current offer letter, support letters of the current principal, past principal, and retired principals of HISD.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We will now hear from speakers who registered for the hearing of the community. We will begin with those who signed up to address the board in the auditorium. Well, what? I don't know. Is there noise coming from the? This construction. Okay. Okay. Can we ask them to stop? Okay. Thank you. We will now hear from speakers who registered for hearing of the community. We will begin with those who signed up to address the board in the auditorium. Will Angela Raven Anderson please come to the microphone? She'll be followed by Brooke Longoria, Rosalie Longoria, and Ann Garcia.
Good evening. I am here representing Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. I am bringing 2,000 signed letters that I need to present to our Superintendent Mike Miles. These letters are a statement of opposition to the repurposing of libraries to detention centers. These letters represent the voice of the people. These letters represent our concern for the creation of separate and unequal learning environments for our students. These letters represent the fact that there is no research that supports the closing of libraries or the repurposing of libraries in the as a means of increasing literacy. Increasing literacy is one of our main interests within the social justice ministry of our church, because we know that literacy will help to derail the pre-K to prison pipeline. So I have these letters to present to you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we're ready to proceed. Miss Brooke Longoria. Miss Longoria, please go ahead.
I'm Brooke Longoria. I'm a HISD mom, attorney, and I work in a data shop, and I'm here today to ask why we are not making data-driven decisions at HISD. Dual language is a thriving program in HISD, one that exists all over town in a variety of zip codes. Now under NES, 12 schools will lose their dual language program. In an interview with the Chronicle, Superintendent Miles said that schools will retain their dual language and he will expand dual language. What he has described is not dual language, that is language enrichment. Dual language is a minimum of 50% instruction in Spanish and English. It has a focus on Spanish language arts, and it results in children who are bilingual, biliterate, and bicultural. He is doing this at the possible expense of leaving funding dollars on the table. I don't understand how, as a community, how that is a smart decision. And I also don't understand why we are not taking into account our multilingual learners and following best practices for them and what results in high academic achievement.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got, is this Rosalie?
My name is Rosalie Longoria, and I'm not just going to tell, but I'm going to teach you why being bilingual is important, because being bilingual isn't nothing. Being bilingual is a life skill. English and Spanish are two of the most common languages in the world. Fun fact, when you're bilingual, you can talk to so many people. I can read in English and Spanish thanks to my dual language teachers. And now I'm going to say all of this in Spanish to you, mister. Ser bilingüe no es nada. Ser bilingüe, hablar de dos idiomas es una habilidad para la vida. Inglés y español son dos de los idiomas más comunes del mundo. Dato curioso, cuando eres bilingüe puedes hablar con tanta gente. Puedo hablar y leer en inglés y en español gracias a mis maestros bilingües. And turn that bell off, please.
Thank you.
Turn the bell off.
Okay. Our next speaker is Ann Garcia, who will be followed by Placido Gomez and Savant Moore. Ms. Garcia.
Yo no soy tan adorable como esta niña, pero yo estoy aquí también para hablar la importancia de una educación bilingüe. I learned to speak Spanish in Texas public schools, and this ability has expanded my life in so many different ways. Not only has it literally opened up the world to me, it has given me educational experiences and career opportunities. I have 3 kids in HISD, all in a dual language program. This was one of my top priorities for my kids because multilingualism has been proven to help a child develop superior reading and writing skills. Multilingual children have overall better analytical, social, and academic skills than their unilingual peers. An extensive study has shown that they have stronger cognitive skills, they get better grades, they attain higher levels of education, and earn more money. Que yo no entiendo es que ustedes están aquí para representar la visión y los valores de la comunidad, pero no están haciéndolo.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Placido Gomez, followed by Savant Moore. Mr. Gomez.
My name is Placido Gomez. I'm a former teacher and volunteer in HISD. Throughout this meeting, whenever the superintendent speaks about his plans to change the school system, I'd like you to ask him how he's getting buy-in from people who are responsible for implementing his proposed changes. No plan will improve student outcomes if the staff and community aren't bought in. Mr. Miles has made the argument that we need to act right now and forgo the usual committees that new administrations typically form because our children can't wait. And as somebody who graduated from a school where more than half of my friends dropped out, I understand and I actually appreciate the sense of urgency. But I fear that shortcutting community and staff engagement will jeopardize the effectiveness and sustainability of anything you'd like to do. I'm not arguing that you should wait until you have 100% approval to act, but I do suggest pushing the superintendent to talk to you about how he's getting staff and community buy-in for his proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Savant Moore, followed by Ann Ton and Jessica Campos.
My name is Minister Moore from Greater Morning Star Baptist Church. I'm a parent and advocate for my children attending McReynolds Middle School. Make sure the NES schools keep their magnet programs. I implore you to listen to my words on behalf of the parents and children who couldn't be present here today. My daughter's aspiration for the fall included achieving straight A's, participating in cross-country, spending more time at the gym and library, yet she faces a disappointing truth. The library, once a cornerstone of learning, no longer exists for her at her school. In the decisions and votes you cast, I ask you to reflect on 2 vital questions that should guide our actions. Would I make this choice if it impacted my own child, grandchild, or younger self? And can I rest peacefully tonight knowing the implications of the decision I've made? Too much is indeed at stake, the dreams of our children, the future of our community. Mr. Campos said earlier this year that teamwork and partnership helped him on his own journey. I urge him to partner with our community with his vote. While equality and equity might remain elusive, I beseech HISD to grant us respect. Respect for underserved communities, for they deserve certified educators, magnet programs, libraries, as much as the more privileged.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Ann Ton, followed by Jessica Campos, and then Cheryl Hensley.
I'm a brilliant, beautiful child of God, and I can do anything in Jesus' name. My mom makes me say that every morning, and I believe it. Hello, my name is Sophie Amarie Grace Rojas. I'm 10 years old and I'm going to 5th grade. I'm glad that you're here today to hear me, Miles.
I'm sorry. Is this Miss Ton?
No.
Or Mr. Ton? That's our next speaker.
This is Jessica Campos' daughter.
Okay, can we?
Thank you.
Yeah, but can we let the other speaker go ahead?
Oh, was it you? I'm sorry.
Sorry. Thank you. Ms. Ton, please go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know how I'll top what that little girl said, but I'll try. Good evening. Good evening. My name is An. I'm a senior at Chavez, and I'm currently applying to university. So I've been spending a lot of time staring at a screen writing essays. At school, you can probably find me in the library. It's nice to sit down and relax and read a book or two. The last thing I want to do is spend my time staring at another screen. What HISD, what you are proposing, is another way to discipline students. You seem very focused on reprimanding students. Isn't it your job to uplift and see our students succeed? My school recently started enforcing uniforms that many families can't afford. Some schools don't even get students their computers. Are you going to force students into a room because of a single bare shoulder? Is that what you should be focusing on? Libraries aren't replaceable. Students and people alike go there to travel and learn about new places just by reading a few lines from a page. I'm not asking as a student, but as a person. Don't replace a learning environment with a punishment.
Thank you. Ms. Jessica Campos.
I'm brilliant, beautiful, child of God, and I can do anything in Jesus' name. Amen. My mom makes me say that every morning, and I believe it. Hello, my name is Sophie Amory Grace Rojas. I'm 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade. I'm glad that you're here today, Miles. I'm glad that you're here today to hear me out today.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I'm glad that you're here today, Miles. I go to Peel Elementary, and I know what you're thinking right now. I go...
Okay.
I know what you're thinking right now about all the my library. Of course, I'm going to talk about my library. I have dyslexia, and I need to know my history and know how to read. But I can't because you took away my library, and I'm not sad. I'm extremely mad that you took away my teachers, but do you see how I'm reading this right now? It's all because of my teachers. I couldn't do this last year. I feel like you don't care at all. Away, my best friends, my family, which is my teachers. I love them so much, but you wouldn't understand because you never came to our school to meet us. Changing the libraries to a detention center, that means that you're thinking that we're bad and rude kids, but we're not. We are brilliant, beautiful children of God, and we could do anything in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cheryl Hensley, followed by Paula Kobina, and then Laura Henry. Ms. Hensley?
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Cheryl Hensley, and I've been a certified librarian for 39 years, and I've loved every single minute of it. The library is more than checking out books. Please listen. It's more than checking out books. I've listened intently to this rename calling of the Zoom rooms, the discipline centers, the team centers. All you're doing is renaming, dismantling, disstaffing the library, the heart of the school. Libraries are a community. Libraries give students a choice, reading by choice. When they take it home, they'll read it 10 times over because they got a choice. Library programs impact every student, every school, every day. You represent the students, these students in HISD, and many of you have children in schools at HISD or have had kids in HISD. Is there a library in your school? Is there a librarian? Would you send them to a school that doesn't have a choice? No choice? What is it called? Reading exists. Equity exists.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is my point of view.
Thank you. Paula Kobina, followed by Laura Henry, and then Hayden Cohen. Ms. Kobina?
To the Board of Managers, when F. Mike Miles attended his last Meet the Families tour of schools at Christmas Adams Middle School, I was able to give 2 Board of Managers, Rolando Martinez and Paula Mendoza, a letter entitled Total Disregard for Your Chosen Purpose from a business leader of the community who is also a Houston Black retired police officer and Vietnam War veteran. They were given several copies to give out. On yesterday, I was able to turn in the copy and register to speak on this evening. I have copies of those letters for Ms. Audrey Momania and the Secretary, Angela Lamont. It is of great importance that this correspondence is not overlooked, but regarded as a crucial means of solving and repairing the breach between the state government, city officials, and all stakeholders who are part of the education process in not only Houston, but the entire state of Texas. From Paula Covina.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Our next registered speaker is Laura Henry. It looks like
occurred to me as I walked around that the pictures in this room, they're all kids in their school libraries, happy. And then it occurred to me that, I gotta finish. I have to finish. It occurred to me that this room is the room where my kid's done Name That Book since the first grade. She is a sophomore now, and she's sitting in the hall because we didn't sign her up right to give a really heartfelt speech. But I'm here because I want kids to get what my kid has. My kid has a librarian. Not everybody may love libraries as much as my child, but some kids in every school will. Those kids will discover stories and learn ideas and explore places they won't discover anywhere else in the school building. And every child, no matter how frequently they use library services, deserves the opportunity to get to know the library and what it can do for them. Librarians teach students how to develop relationships with books, and they remind the students to pick up another one. We need this repetitive book whisperer over and over again. It's easy to forget that you love reading if you stop reading for pleasure. Can I go?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Laura Henry is our next speaker. Thank you. Oh, apologies. Hayden Cohen. Our next speaker is Hayden Cohen. Ma'am. Ma'am. Ma'am, please have a seat. Our next speaker, ma'am, this is your first warning for being disruptive. Our next speaker is Hayden Cohen.
Hi, my name is Hayden, and I'm an HISD alumni and state policy lead of Students Engaged in Advancing Texas. My school was a newer high school, so we had no library. I had some amazing English teachers that introduced many books to us, but I'm going to be honest, I thought I hated reading, because the only books I had read were the ones in class that I didn't like, and they were always attached to assignments and tests. It wasn't until I started going to my public library and the library in college that I realized I actually love reading, and the librarians there helped me find books that were interesting to me. Fun fact, librarians actually do more than checking out books, and they play a crucial role in our students' education. From learning about what an author and illustrator do, to curating the library selection of books to be developmentally and culturally appropriate. By firing librarians and turning libraries into disciplinary centers, especially in schools that are predominantly Black and Hispanic students, you are contributing to the school-to-prison pipeline, and that's just messed up. Listen to my words today and keep libraries open. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Karthik Sura, followed by Nelva Williamson and Dana Castro. Karthik Sura.
Hello, everybody. My name is Karthik Sura. I'm a former HISD teacher and Emerge program manager. And I'm here today because of the fact that fundamentally I want to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about, libraries. And I think that what you're doing in terms of dismantling them and turning them into discipline rooms is abhorrent. But something else is even more abhorrent. The pillar of our democracy is the idea that every one of us, all of us here in this ruckus democracy matter. I'm going to talk and quote from a text that a lot of students might not have access to right now by Abraham Lincoln. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. But it has perished because you took our democracy away. It should alarm every single person in this room that there are people on this board who ran for office, lost, and then were appointed anyway. Especially given the fact that at the same time today we're having hearings to overturn more elections. Our democracy matters, and you can't take that away from us, and we're going to fight.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Nelva Williamson, followed by Dana Castro. Ms. Williamson.
Message to the Board of Managers. How do you sleep at night knowing you are complicit in the destruction of the largest school district in Texas? My concerns. The closing of libraries in the so-called NES schools. If you want to improve reading scores, you get students to love learning to read, and the library is the place to do it. Creating discipline centers in a library. Sending students to the library as a place of punishment does not help them to do anything except to look at school and reading as punishment. What is the exact purpose of the centers? In the spring, we were told one thing, but last week, that all of a sudden changed when there was a hue and cry from the public. 3, removal of consultation of teacher unions. Consultation is essential for teachers and support staff to have a voice and to sit at the table. Changes in policies to approve contracts. No superintendent should have the power to approve a contract of up to $1 million without over.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Dana Castro. Ma'am, thank you. Our next speaker is Dana Castro. Ma'am, thank you. Please, ma'am, thank you. Ma'am, this is your first warning. Thank you. Please have a seat. Our next speaker is Dana Castro. Ms. Castro, please go ahead.
While you guys keep rushing us, just remember you had only 2 months to get ready. We had, what, a week? So again, we find ourselves fighting for our autonomy. I don't understand your reasoning for speeding up, but you guys know because you weren't elected. Okay? You're speeding up the process by excluding public opinion. But again, we aren't here for you and yours. We're here for our kids right now, who depend on public and school libraries. We need to find a compromise with your principals. Screw them. Ignore them. Talk to your principals, parents. Find a compromise. See who's willing to negotiate. More importantly, sorry, I'm getting nervous. More importantly, we depend on our schools being safe. When intruders are infiltrating our schools, specifically my child's elementary school, 3 times last year went on lockdown. Professionalism goes out the door. So keeping our classroom locked is a no-brainer. Your doors at home are locked. Your
Thank
doors
you,
are
ma'am.
shut.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we will hear from registered speakers who signed up to speak. Ma'am, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Next, we will hear from registered speakers who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom. Zoom speakers, please remember that we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. Ms. Smith, please identify and admit our speakers.
Jason Oliver, please turn your camera on. You may begin.
I think here.
Mr. Oliver, please turn your camera on. You may begin when your camera is on. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jason Oliver. I live in HISD. There are so many indefensible policies. It's really frustrating that we don't even have time to look at which ones might actually be good for the district. This is poor policy making. You all know that, right? This isn't just the HISD community that's pushing back on this. This is the entire country. We have real needs that are needed in HISD. We have issues with chronic absenteeism. We have issues with teacher retention. We have issues with teacher working conditions. We need support staff like counselors and, of course, librarians, right? This is your time. We need you to show us for HISD students and community. This is your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Erin Klein, if she's on Zoom.
Ms. Klein, please turn your camera on. You may begin. Go ahead.
Ms. Klein, you're on. Ms. Klein, you're on. Please go ahead. No success. Ms. Klein, you're on camera. Please go ahead. What's that? Okay, that concludes our hearing of registered speakers. We are ready to consider I understand Bishop Dixon is in the building. Hi there, sir. I understand you might want to speak. Is that right? Please go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. It's on?
Thank you so very much, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks to all of you who are here and all of us who are here tonight out of a concern for all of our children. I am an HISD graduate of Waltrip High School. In the 5th grade at Helms Elementary on West 21st Street, a librarian put in my hand a book on the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I can say to you that had it not been for that librarian and that book, I would not be standing here tonight. That book gave me a conviction of compassion to become a humanitarian for the rest of my life. There are many more James Dixons in many more classrooms who need libraries, and I hope that this board will understand that what we're talking about right now is not just democracy, it's the future of our city, state, and nation. If leaders like me serve to make life better for all of us, libraries produce that. Hope that you would take that into deep consideration, and we'd like to talk about some other things. I know my time is about up. I pray that God blesses you to make the right decisions for all children, not the expedient decision for a small pessimistic agenda. Libraries should not be detention centers, learning centers. In fact, take children who are in trouble to the library and make them read in order to develop themselves, because if and you take a future from a child's life.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We're ready to consider discussion and report items. First, Superintendent Miles, I think you're going to give us an update, and we are ready for that. Colleagues, please hold your questions until the presentation is complete.
All right. Thanks for giving me a little bit of time to report out. I want to give a quick update. The first thing is we're down to about 63 teacher vacancies, and we will start the school year off hopefully with 0. And of the teachers that we've hired, remember at the last board meeting I said there were 84 teachers without certification. They all have bachelor's degrees, of course, but 84 did not have certification. Now it's 87. So we're almost at 0, and it's only 87. That's less than 1 per.
Please stop interrupting the meeting so that the board can understand the update. No, actually, this is the board's meeting, and superintendent is updating us. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a meeting of the board in public. This is not a public board meeting.
Thank you.
So I will continue to address the board. So that is great news. That's great for our kids. When we start the school off, with 0 vacancies. Last year it was 644. And I hope the board understands how difficult it was just to get to that number already. And if we can get to 0 and not have any unfilled classrooms, that's going to be a great thing for our kids. And your HR department, your division superintendents, the ones right behind me, have done an excellent job. They've been working overtime to do right by kids, and it's happening. The other thing is that happened this week is principals and executive directors and actually division superintendents went out to Ector College Prep in Odessa. 1,400 middle schoolers started a week ago on August 2nd. And on Monday was their 4th day of school, and they had about 70 administrators walking the halls. But it was worth the trip because the principals got to see what we're talking about. Yes, we've trained them. Yes, we've given them video clips. Yes, we took them to Forest Brook and Shady Dale, and we showed them the actual team center with the desks. We showed them how it would look, but there were no kids in the building at the time. So taking these principals to the school and showing them a team center, they were amazed. They actually now understand what a team center is. They could see it's a place of study. Many of them asked, well, where are the discipline kids? And they were pointing out there's one kid sitting over here while other kids were working. That kid is also working. It's not an ISS. They said, well, where's the in-school suspension room? There's no in-school suspension room, which is real detention. We got rid of those in the NES schools. So they got to see that. They got to see the kids in there. They got to see the kids early in the morning at 6:30 and 7 o'clock pull books off the shelf and read, because in the team centers you can't just sit. You can just sit in the cafeteria in the morning, but you can't in the team center. You have to work. And if you don't want to, you can stay in the cafeteria. But you can go to the team center. They got to see kids sitting in the team center before school, pulling books off the shelf, reading, putting the books back, and then going to class. They saw that also after school. So they get to see it, and we invited them, of course. Well, we sent them, and we invite anybody else before they have the wrong idea of what's going on to actually go and see. Because a picture's worth 1,000 words. Actually visiting is even more important, especially for leaders to go out and see. And when the 28th comes and that whole week, even though it's the first day, and and kids are still finding their way, you're going to see it in action. And I know the board will go out during the first week or second week of September, and hopefully other people will go out and actually see it before they misinform other people about it. So that's what's happening right now, and they're coming back today. They may already be back, but that's a quick update. Another thing I want to talk about just briefly, because we talk a lot about logistics and processes and systems on how to hire, how to write the curriculum. And those are important. Those are what we call processes. We talk about capacity. People are correct to question how strong the teachers are, and we're going to talk about teacher eval in a minute. That's capacity. By the way, the middle circle is leadership density, so we know that we have to have all of those. But one of the things that superintendents rarely talk about is culture. And they rarely talk about what a high performance culture is. That's why...
Mr. Miles, if you'll hold on. Can we please get order in this room? Thank you. The board is trying to do important work and listen to the superintendent presentation, and I would ask that this folks in the audience, especially those who I can't see because they're turned around, if you would please keep it down so that we can hear the presentation and understand and move it along.
So culture.
If somebody in board services can please go to the back of the room. I can't identify folks who are interrupting at this point. All right. Can we please proceed? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So, and by high performance culture, I mean the following. Look, we have a lot of people working hard, but we also have past practices that impede the work. And so one of the things that every district has to do if it's moving, it's going to move effectively and efficiently and really help the principals and teachers, is we've got to work more on the right-hand side of this chart. We have to have higher expectations. For example, we said when I got here, we're going to try to get to zero. Many people didn't think that was possible in the organization. Mr. Miles, we've always had several hundred. That's how how it's been. How is it possible to get to zero? And I said, look, it is if we just work smarter and we work harder. We have to raise our expectations, which we've done. Clear accountability. The culture here has been high autonomy, low accountability. And I think most people can understand that's a recipe for inefficiency, ineffectiveness. We have to have a figure-it-out mentality, not a learned helplessness mentality. We have to be outcomes-focused versus checking the box, going through the motions, or just going through process. This stuff is hard. And I just need the board to know that we're going to work all year on this. This is something you can't do overnight. Yes, we can, not many other districts can, but we can get vacancies down within 2 months to almost zero. That's a feat, but that's not even as hard as doing what I'm talking about on this slide right here. So I just wanted to mention it briefly so that as we go throughout the year, I will report out every once in a while. Again, we've got a lot of people working hard. We do have a culture that needs to move more to the right than the one on the left. And that's going to take some time, and we're going to work at it. And then we will have a high-performance culture, and things will work much more effectively. Let's talk about teacher eval compensation and support. I know the board has had this, and it's been on the website, this teacher evaluation compensation and support document. There's 70 pages, I think, so there's a lot of detail. I'm not going to go through all that detail tonight. I'm going to move pretty quickly through these slides because you already have a lot of the information. But I did want to highlight just a few things because this is really important and actually addresses the notion of what's a high-quality teacher. We did get feedback, and we sent out surveys. We sent out a couple, one to NES and NES Align, teachers, administrators, shared decision-making teams, parents, community members. I didn't put all of this on there because you have it in your packet. So just to make things easier to read, this is a question that we sent out a couple weeks ago that says, should effective teachers be paid more than less effective teachers? And you can see the results there. The number, almost 100 strongly agree, 40-some agree. This is NES and NES Align. So you can see that's a lot of people who are mostly agreeing and strongly agreeing. Then, if you just add all the parents, the community members, and the teachers, all together, you can see the numbers there. Strongly agree and agree by far. This is a good sign from our community. And
again, I'm sorry, Mr. Miles.
That's all right.
Can we please not scream out in the middle of a presentation? Thank you.
All right. And then the non.
Ma'am, please. I see you're leaving the meeting. Thank you very much.
So
okay.
then one of the questions, similar question we sent to non-NES and NES aligned teachers, administrators, shared decision-making teams, and then parents and other community members. And you can see, again, there's more people responding to this because there's more non-NES folks. Strongly agree and agree were by far the highest. If you put them all together for non-NES and non-NES aligned, you see that the numbers are really high for agree and strongly agree that effective teachers should be paid more than non-effective teachers. And then if you took all the surveys together, regardless of NES and NES aligned, that's what all means there, regardless of NES and NES aligned, you can see 300, almost 300 strongly agree, over 150 agree. And if you count the parents and community members, it's even higher. So a lot of people took this survey, and that's what the result is. In the end, 80% of the teachers who took this survey, who responded, agree or strongly agree. 88% of administrators and 81% of all respondents. Here's something to think about, though. What this says is, once again, regardless of the naysaying, most teachers, administrators, and actually parents and community members agree. They're stepping up. They're saying what we had before is not good. Because we don't have in HISD, until now, a pay-for-performance system. We don't. And yet, this group of people is saying that we should have something like that. We asked a couple other questions real quick of our NES and NESA. We also asked about non-NES and non-NESA. Another question. This one is, what percent of the evaluation should be tied to student achievement? This is the question we sent out. What percent of the evaluation should be based on student achievement data? 0%, 20%, 30%, 40%, or greater than 40%. And you can see that very few people said 0%. Most said 20 to 30. The way you read the graph is there's a number on the left-hand side. That's the number of respondents. And so you can see that there's a lot of people who voted for 20%, 30%. Some even thought it should be 40%. 20 people thought it should be greater than 40%. And so if you look at this is a different question. This is for non-NES and non-NES aligned people in the survey. If you look at this question, is the quality of instruction is best assessed through frequent spot observations. 77% of teachers, 88% of administrators, and 62% of shared decision-making committee members said yes, they agree or strongly agree that there should be spot observations. These are regular, frequent coaching. Once again, I'm impressed with the teachers and administrators and shared decision-making committees that said, look, what we're doing, this old-fashioned way of not going into the classroom, waiting every 6 months or 4 months before you get a visit from your administrator, that doesn't work. This group is saying, yes, we need frequent spot observations. That is something that we should really keep in mind, and that's why I'm hoping the board will pass the teacher evaluation system. Real quick, the 4 areas will be student achievement, 35%. Only 10% is tied to STAR. Only 10% of an evaluation is tied to STAR. 35% is tied to achievement data, though. 40% is tied to teacher performance. 40%. 10% is tied to student survey data. Now, we only do 3rd grade through 10th grade. We don't do K1 and 2 for student survey data. And then the final piece, the 15%, is school action plan. Now, in order to make this fair, because some teachers have a tested area, and then some teachers don't, so we have to have categories of teachers. And so if you look at this, you have category A, or teachers that have a national assessment or nationally normed assessment, or a state normed assessment. Category B are the K1 and 2 kids who have an assessment like Dibbles, but they don't participate in a survey. Category C are mostly your elective teachers. They don't have student achievement data per se. they have what we call student learning objectives, the goals that they set. In category D are your exceptional teachers who don't have a class homeroom. Some of your interventionists are that way. Some of your special education teachers are that way. They don't have a homeroom. So everybody falls into one of these categories. And so the assessment for each one is very similar. The only difference is if there's no student survey data, if you don't have a homeroom, you don't have student survey data. If you're a K1 and 2 teacher, you don't have student survey data. Those 10 points are placed into teacher performance. That's the difference. So you can see that every teacher is evaluated. Every teacher is evaluated rigorously. And we will know at the end who's an effective teacher and who's not, mostly because of the performance, the classroom performance. Not mostly because of the achievement data, although that's important. Mostly because of the performance, mostly because we're going to ask students, and mostly because of the school action plan. That's when we know we have an effective teacher. Now, every teacher will have a score out of 100, and you can see right there what the effectiveness level is. Now, these will be normed a little bit, meaning if we have to curve it, we will, but there is a score out of 100. If you want to be distinguished, though, not only will you have a score out of 100, you will also get points for leadership, lifelong learning, and contributions to the profession. A teacher's a great teacher if they can teach their kids well. They're a distinguished teacher if they can teach their kids well and show leadership outside the classroom, show lifelong learning, because we want all of our kids to have lifelong learning, and contribute to the profession. Finally, this is a target distribution. What this means is, and this is probably the most controversial part of the teacher eval, this is a forced distribution, meaning out of the 11,000 teachers, we will force this distribution to prevent inflation. So 60% of our teachers will be proficient or higher, 25% will be what's called progressing to, so near proficient. And then you can see 12% will be progressing 1, and 3% will be unsatisfactory. So this is a target distribution. It is what keeps the evaluation rigorous. And we're going to know who our most effective teachers are, whether they have a certification or not. They will have a great evaluation, a rigorous evaluation. And this is how we will have this target distribution. And then finally, our evaluation will be tied to compensation. And this will be what the compensation is. I said to the board, at some point, we need to make sure that our teachers get paid more. Yes, we're going to ask them to have rigor. We're going to ask for them to step up. We're going to ask for the principals to evaluate more closely. And we're going to have a target distribution. In the end of the day, though, if you're a proficient teacher, you should be paid well. So in this system, the new education the NES aligned teachers and the NES teachers will be going through this evaluation. At the end of the year, each of those teachers will get a evaluation rating and an effectiveness level. If the NES aligned teacher gets a proficient 1 evaluation rating, their base salary in the year 24-25 will be $80,000. We may have to adjust this, but this is what's in draft right now. But most likely that will be the salary. If they're proficient 2, they'll get 88 base salary. Doesn't matter how many years of experience they have. If they go through this evaluation and they get proficient 1 or proficient 2, that's what the salary will be. So you could be a 3rd-year teacher or an 8th-year teacher. If you're proficient 2, you make 88. At the same time, even the progressing score is pretty good, right? If you're progressing 2, so you're near proficient, we're saying our evaluation process is so rigorous and will identify the most efficient or proficient teachers that even at progressing 2, we're going to pay pretty high salaries, $75,000. And then if you're progressing 1, it's a lower salary at $70,000. Unsat teachers, $65,000, but you know, I've said before, and I'm saying it again, if you're unsat, you'll probably be non-renewed in this district. So that's, this is the salary. You can see we're going to raise salaries for teachers. This is the way it should be. They should be paid a professional wage, and most teachers are going to love this evaluation system. In fact, even without this, you can see through the survey that most teachers already think this is going to be good for them. That's my quick presentation, board members.
Thank
you
you.
for your time. But, ma'am, any questions?
Yes, if we could please have the folks sitting. Thanks. Appreciate it. Are there any questions or comments from the board members about either of the presentations we just heard? Ms. Flowers.
Thank you for the presentation, Superintendent Miles, and thank you to the staff for all the hard work that has happened over the summer. We know this was a behemoth job.
I don't know if you're on mic. Can
you hear
the
me?
folks in the back please be quiet? We're trying to do board work. Thank you.
I want to express our appreciation to the staff and all of the work that has gone into getting to this point today. My question is about the reflective kind of evaluative process that you have and that the staff has about this evaluation model. So at the end of the year, how will you assess how it's gone? And is there a feedback loop for teachers to give comment and input so that as you improve each year, how has that worked into the process? Is my question.
Yes, so we will keep really good data on all of this. We will also have our shared decision-making committees meet regularly to talk about it. Principal Advisory Committee will be in full effect. The Teachers Advisory Committee will be in full effect. Keep in mind, this evaluation right here is only for NES and NES aligned for this year. The other teachers, 188 schools, so 7,000 teachers, will not have this evaluation. They will have a truncated version of it, and you see in the handouts that for this group, the 188 schools, except if you're probationary 1 or probationary 2, you need this similar evaluation to this. All of the teachers can ask to waive their evaluation. If they don't want to waive it, they will be evaluated using the truncated version that probationary 1 and probationary 2 teachers will have. So we understand that teachers have to get used to this, and so we're going to do training all year long. If they feel like it's even the truncated version is overbearing, like there's too much, then they can waive their evaluation. So we're really trying to help the overwhelming majority of teachers. Keep in mind, even if teachers didn't volunteer, 57 schools volunteered to be NES aligned. And so they knew what was going on.
If we can please, the crowd in the back, if we can please, ma'am in the pink, please, we are trying to conduct board business for the school district. We need order in this room to allow that to continue. Mr. Miles, continue, please.
Isn't it great that you have 85 schools or 57 volunteered to go in? The principals of the original 28 volunteered to be the principals. That is a coalition of the willing. That's why there's so much pushback from a small group of people, because they see that people are wanting to do this. The survey results, they have to say that it's not real because people are volunteering. They're standing up and they're saying, yes, this is what we should do. And so the same thing's happening here. That's why we will keep moving forward on this, and we will get input as we go. You're absolutely right. So I will have I've already convened a small group of principals, but that principals group will be larger. That teacher, we've already convened some teachers. That teachers group will be larger. We are going to consult with all groups, not just through the DAC, not just through the site-based decision-making committees, but also these groups that I'm forming, and also the union groups or the association groups we'll be consulting with. They got for example, they got a notice today that next Friday, I think, is the day we're going to meet. We're going to ask if they can send representatives and just consult about different things that are going on. So we will get input to answer your question.
Any other, Ms. Cruz-Arnold?
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question from a few slides back about distinguished teachers. What are some of the things that teachers can do to differentiate themselves to be distinguished to earn the maximum 20 points? And are these contributions to the profession, lifelong learning, leadership, are these things, sorry, can you just tell me what some of those things are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we will be training teachers on this. The first training actually is next week because teachers come back next week. So they'll be trained in a conference style, and they can go to the teacher eval section. And we're going to talk about this. There's a rubric for each one of these for leadership, lifelong learning, and contributions to the profession. So they can look at it early. But we're talking about teachers who contribute. For example, they may mentor another teacher. They may share their work with another teacher. They may work in a committee to help kids. They may download data, manage that data, and put it in a graph so that their colleagues can see it. So this is a way for teachers to help teachers not just be a great classroom teacher, that's number one, and help your kids succeed, but also to help others. And in this way, we also build camaraderie and teamwork, because you can't be distinguished without going through this process. Lifelong learning, those who continue to have continuing education credits, for example, or maybe they just take an online course, or they learn how to use AI, and they can show that they're a lifelong learner. That's what falls into that category. Leadership is almost anything where they're contributing as a group, leading a team, helping their colleagues, leading a PLC. A great opportunity is when you present at a conference and you're helping others. Or you agree to lead the PLC. Or you agree to organize the after-school activities. So you're stepping up. That's what those are. And it's a great way for teachers to contribute to the school, but also contribute to their colleagues. So if you're that type of teacher, because one of the criticisms is always, well, this promotes competition. If you're the type of teacher you don't want to share, you just want to stay in your classroom, you want to just do your own thing, you will not be distinguished. You might be proficient, but you will not be distinguished.
Thank you. It sounds like these are things that are accessible to teachers at all campuses, but will you let us know throughout the year if there are funding needs to make some of these things, like going to conferences, accessible to all teachers?
Yeah, that's a great idea. They have professional development days, but I think we haven't even looked into whether or not we fund conferences, and maybe that's an area we need to do.
Other questions? Ms. Ozanne Bandy?
Thank you, Superintendent. I have a question. I think a lot of folks in the industry are familiar with forced rankings and bell curves and things like that for performance. My question is around the leading indicators of an unsatisfactory teacher or even a proficient and distinguished teacher, and how that is going to be used to supplement, help, mentor, intervene when there are indications of a teacher not meeting that proficiency.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Great question. The leading indicator is the quality of instruction. Even in the first week of school, our principals will be coaching teachers. It is a requirement in the NES and NES aligned schools and actually the entire district, because the principals will also be evaluated on a pay-for-performance system, and they will be conducting coaching on the job every day. Every teacher should be at least visited every day by somebody, an AP or an administrator, every day. And they should not get
Can we please? Thank you.
They should just get an indication of what's going well. They should be validated, but they should also get a tip for how to improve. That will happen across the system, you'll see. And then there's a spot observation every month, at least one. Teachers who are struggling will get more than that, and they will get more attention. But our philosophy is coaching is how you improve. It's day to day. It's not once every 6 months or once every 3 months. It's not, I set an appointment for October 18th and that's the day I'm coming in. That's not how you grow. How you grow is on-the-job feedback.
Any questions on this side?
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Martinez?
Yeah, good afternoon. A couple questions. First of all, I want to congratulate you and the administration, the fact that we have a small number of vacancies. That's something to be excited about.
Thank you.
And that's a good thing, right? I think we need to recognize when there's good things from a community perspective. We need to have teachers in the classroom. I do have a question about the evaluation. I think the same screen that you show with Board Member Cruz Arnold, if you can go back to that one.
The target distribution?
Yes, target. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so when we look at unsat, so with the number of teachers, 3%, so we, at a minimum, if I understand you correctly, we should have turnover at least 3% every year if we go just to that. So here's my question to you. What happens in instances where we have teachers that have been proficient or something else for 4, 5, 6 years, and then they get an unsat for that 1 year? How are we treating them?
Yeah, so if you look at and I know it's a long document, but the answer to the question is every year you get a rating. That's a number out of 100, and it's attached to a proficiency level. You can move up every year, but you can only move down when you have 2 years in a row of lesser performance. So let's say this year you're proficient. The following year you get progressing 2. Your salary will remain proficient. The following year after that you get progressing 2. That's 2 years in a row of less than performance. On that third year, the following year, so you'll be lowered 1. Even if you get progressing 1 and progressing 1, you were proficient, you won't be reduced to progressing 1, you'll be reduced to progressing 2. And that takes 3 years, 2 years of evaluation, and on the third year, you'll get a lower salary. So it tries to it gives the teacher the advantage. So you're not fluctuating like this. But you can move up every year. So proficient 1 this year, if you score well, you get proficient 2, then exemplary 1. So that's how it works. It was designed with teachers in mind so that their salaries would be preserved. But there's no question, ineffective teachers, the lowest performing teachers will not like this evaluation system.
Superintendent Miles, what is the impact on student achievement that you can tell us is going to be resulting from this type of process for evaluation?
There is, in fact, I didn't put the charts up here, I don't think. Yeah. Because the impact on student achievement based on a pay-for-performance system is well documented. It's documented by Commit and by well-known researchers. And I put the title pages of the National Bureau of Economic Research so that you could see. I'll send them to you if you don't have them already. The National Bureau of Economic Research, the title pages, you can see they were done in March. So not long ago, a good study of Dallas's pay for performance. And also you can just go on Commit website. I have some slides on it. I didn't want to increase the length of this presentation, so I didn't put it down. But
Okay.
it's indisputable. Achievement is going to go up based on this.
Any other?
And then it's based on this other stuff.
If we can, please. Any other board members with questions?
One other question, and I don't know, you said this at the beginning. When can we expect this to occur in non-NES or non-NES aligned schools? When will they happen?
This teacher excellence system will be in effect this year for NES and NESA. For non-NES, NESA, it's 24-25 school year. So it'll take this year to help train, to help people get used to it, to answer any of those questions, things like that, and then it'll go into effect. And remember, this year is, I don't want to call it a bye year, but you can waive your evaluation if you're in the 188 schools, except probationary 1 and probationary 2nd year. Probationary 1st year, probationary 2nd year have to be evaluated.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Next, we will consider, thank you, Superintendent Miles, very much.
Ma'am, do you want to have Jim Terry speak now?
Oh, that would be great. Mr. Terry is going to speak on the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And for the board, the budget amendment sheet is in front of you, or should be.
If you give me a second, Madam Chair and board members, thank you for this opportunity to present. I'll wait for the back office to bring this up. I'm going to send the expert over there. But you do have a white sheet in front of you with the numbers. Right here. So last meeting, I brought you the adopted budget, which was adopted in June. So this is the July 1st, which, as you say, was adopted in June. This is the budget amendment. Last week, I brought you the budget amendment, and at that time, I told you that it would change because we're in the process. We're still looking for state numbers, and we did find out that there was going to be a change in the assessed value going from $40,000 per household homestead to $100,000. Also, with the way that the state calculates the taxes, that there will be a drop in the taxes, and you can see that we have lowered that revenue down. And basically, this is due to this change in the tax rate given the assessed value drop, given the homestead exemption drop. In the expenditure side, remember I showed you last week there was about $120 million that would roll from last fiscal year into this fiscal year, and that's where you're seeing a lot of these increases is because of that role. Also, we're in the process of implementing Mike Miles's changes in NES and NESA aligned schools. Again, all of these income increases in this budget amendment come from that implementation. And the big line from my perspective is this function 91, and you can see that it dropped by $284 million. Why that dropped was because of that's the recapture line. That's what we have to pay the state. But because of the assessed value going down, our value went down, and therefore we owe less money to the state. And it went down from 328 million down to 41 million. The bottom line, in terms of the net, that did increase some to $245 million.
Ma'am, thank you. Thank you for leaving the meeting. Please continue. Please continue, Mr. Terry.
And in terms of the fund balance, we do expect the fund balance still to be approximately $900 million. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. Campo, go ahead.
So let me make sure I understand. So the revenue goes down 270 million, but that's offset by the 284 million because of the value. We get less taxes, so we have to pay less back to the state from a recapture perspective, correct?
Yeah, the assessed value went down, and therefore our wealth per average daily attendance has gone down, and therefore our recapture is less.
Okay, so the revenue basically offsets, the revenue decline is offset by the expense decline that we have to pay to the state.
Yes, that's
all right,
correct.
So then we're looking at, let's call it roughly $192 million of increase appropriations, and based on your discussion, $120 million of that was money that the previous board appropriated last year that hasn't been spent but will be spent this year, correct? It's just a timing difference?
It's in
between
part,
years.
yes, it's in part timing difference, and it's also in part of items in order to implement the new program that we put out a PO before July 1st.
Gotcha. So roughly the difference between the
120
120 last time and now is this $72 million difference, and that is the increase in NES and NESA stipends and pay and other implementation items that we have had to do as a result of the new education program, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And also in discussions that we've had, we're basically going to get a budget amendment pretty much every board meeting based on at least over the next few months, correct?
Yes, as we implement the new program and we find out, where the adds and the subtracts are, we will be bringing you a budget amendment so that we can stay within the guidelines of statutes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board regarding the budget? No?
I have a question.
Mr. Yvonne, go ahead.
Thank you. Also, just as a note, I want to also commend the
Mr. Yvonne, can you speak
administration
up
for the
just a little
effort.
bit? Can you speak up just a little?
Yes. Let's see here. Can you hear me better now?
If you just get, I think if you get a little closer. Sorry.
Okay. I'm going to try to raise my voice up all the way. How about now? Is that better?
No, just
Yeah.
maybe we need to turn up our volume on our end. Hold on one second. Let's try to do that. Go ahead. Mr. Ravon, I think we're all set. Go ahead.
Great. So first, let me commend the administration for the work and the efforts that have been put in regarding hiring. I'm pleased to support that effort, and I'm also just excited that we're going to start the year in a better position than we have in a long time. So kudos to the administration for that. Secondly, I'd like to request that going forward for the CFO, if we can also include the actual spending category as we're doing the updates, because I'm finding that as the variances change, I'd like to make sure that I'm also aware, the community is aware of where we are with actual spending.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you. And with regard to NESA and the adjustment totals for this particular amendment, what is the sum total adjustment you would align or account towards the NESA, the additional schools that we picked up in regard?
We're working on that number right now. I would say it's approximately 170 million.
Okay, so is that including NSA?
That is NESA and NSA, NES and NSA aligned in all of the changes and additions.
Got it. So we went from 100 to now 170. So roughly the additional schools are somewhere between 60 and 70 million for the additional amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board regarding the budget amendment? Okay. Next, we will consider action items on the agenda. Board policy requires board members to abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. Board policy BBFA local defines a conflict of interest as any circumstance that could cast doubt on a board member's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. Our first item held from the consent agenda is item number 6, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CDC local, other revenues, gifts, and solicitations, first reading. This item was held for discussion by board member Adam Ravon. May I have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Martinez and Mr. Ravon, why don't we let Mr. Ravon go first since he pulled it for discussion? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. For CDC, I'm not sure this truly clears our agenda. Going forward, we'll see kind of what the net difference is. But what I'm mostly concerned about is visibility and continued disclosure to make it easy for those who are interested in the information related here to the gifts. And so if we go forward, I think it's important that we continue to see the gifts, whether or not we're approving them or not, so that when interested parties have easier access to the information going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martinez?
So, my concern with this policy, or at least I won't use the concern, but I think there's some questions about the ability for schools where they don't have an active PTO or families that can't financially give as much as other affluent PTOs. I know that the intent was to make it easy for them. What I'm going to ask for is that we revisit this policy in a couple months, maybe 3 or 4 months. If we find that nonprofits, 501c3s or other churches or other organizations are contributing to these schools, but they have to have board approvals, which is similar to PTOs, then we may want to add that as a exemption, or at least treat them the same as PTO. So So that's what I would suggest for this particular policy is just to, and again, we did a great job of getting the PTO on there, but I think there's other organizations that would like to give as well. And I don't want to make it harder for those schools.
Are you making a motion? Or are you just asking?
No, I'm just saying that we keep it as is for now, and then we revisit it maybe about 4 months or maybe in December to look at that as well.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions or comments on item number 6? No. We will now vote on the motion to approve item number 6, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CDC local, other revenues, gifts and solicitations, first reading. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. The motion passes. Our next item from the consent. Can we please have order in this room? We're trying to conduct board business. Ma'am in the white shirt. Thank you. Our next item held from the consent agenda is item number 7, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CH local, purchasing and acquisition, first reading. This item was held for discussion by board members Adam Ravon and Jeanette Garza-Lindner. May I have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion by members Adam Ravon or Jeanette Garza-Lindner? Ms. Garza-Lindner?
My questions were resolved before this meeting. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry?
My questions were resolved before this meeting.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Mr. Ravon? Mr. Ravon?
Yes. So the question was also resolved. We were able to receive from the administration information regarding the number of contracts that fall within the stratified amounts of 1 million to 2 million and 2 million and above. Those contracts come to about 180 contracts over the course of a year, which I believe is reasonable in regard to oversight for the board and spending from the administration.
Thank you, sir.
This policy is important because it's used to govern and also used to continue to keep close tabs on the spending in the district. I believe that by adjusting it to 1 million from 2 million, we've also gotten to a place where we relieve the administrative exorbitant burden of managing the contracts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Mr.
Yeah,
Martinez?
I do have a question, Superintendent Miles. I know we talked about efficiencies in our last meeting. Can you provide a little bit more specifics about what efficiencies we're looking to gain with this particular request?
Sometimes we have to move fairly quickly, and because some of the contracts that approach us are time sensitive, and we'll be transparent about it, of course. But in order to move forward, for example, you've got information on the types of contracts that we have. We're a big district, so even the curriculum that we spend is a lot of money, right? It's over $1 million just in curriculum. And so, for example, when we wanted to get the school year started off with some of the curricular items, those are contracts that we need to spend right away, and it's hard to wait a month and then have them delivered on time for the start of school. That's just one example, but there's other examples like that. So transparency, yes, but efficiency also.
And then I have another comment. So as I said in our agenda review, I've looked at some other policies, and districts are a little bit all over the place depending on their size, their fund balance. There's a lot of things. And again, this is just for community education as well. What kind of processes do we have in place to make sure that we're spending correctly within our district?
Yeah, so there's several. I mean, we talked tonight about budget amendments coming before the board every month. Financials are coming before the board every month. We're going to do variance every month as the large line items. We have an audit committee
that's going to be looking at this every month or every couple months. I don't know how often you are going to meet. We have a financial auditor already in place that's already conducting an audit of our finances. So there's going to be a lot of transparency and safeguards around how we spend money.
So, can we please? Is there a child in the middle screaming out? Can we please? We are doing. It is about children. That's right, ma'am. Ma'am, this is a warning to you, ma'am, in the pink. Please stop, or I'll have to ask you to leave the meeting. We're trying to conduct board business about our children in HISD. We need to move this meeting forward, and we need to move on with questions from the board. We appreciate your compliance. Thank you.
So, to your point, Superintendent Miles, about transparency, when I spoke last Thursday, I talked about the importance of that. So first, thank you for listening to us with reduction from 2 million to 1 million. I think the other piece that I stated was about reporting mechanism. So here's what I would like, and this is where, Ms. Katasha, I may need your help with this one. So I would like to make a motion to amend the policy from a reporting perspective. And I took the example of policy BDD, which is the one related to litigation approvals. And I believe BDD is asked to report quarterly. And so I would ask that perhaps we report quarterly as well on this particular piece. So the way I kind of made up the motion, tell me if I'm wrong, Ms. Katasha, and if it's the right time. So I would like to make a motion to add this to the policy, which is the superintendent and or his or her designee shall furnish a quarterly report to the board of all district solicitation purchase costs or aggregates between $250,000 to $1 million. And if we can have that on a quarterly basis. Again, just taking the example of board policy BDD, I think that's a way to be transparent with our community. And then also I would say this, when I've spoken to communities, it's been helpful for me to have these things because I've been able to tell people that today on the consent agenda, there's a request for a $3 million purchase for library books. And so that is helpful for me, that when I go to the community, I know what those expenses are so that I can explain exactly what we're doing as a board.
There is a motion to amend item number 7. We'll now take a vote on the motion to amend. We're not voting on the original item. We're voting on whether or not to amend. Is there a second before we take the vote?
I second.
A second? Okay, so there's a second. Okay, now we'll take a vote on the amendment to the item. Can you please restate the amendment or the proposed amendment?
Yes, the superintendent and or his designee shall furnish a quarterly report to the board of all district solicitation purchase costs or aggregates between $250,000 and $1 million.
Okay, does everyone on the board understand the request? Okay, we're now going to vote on the requested amendment. Katasha. All right, folks, just to be clear, we're voting on the amendment to the item. Okay. All in favor of amending item 7 to include the language that Mr. Martinez just stated, please raise your hands. Okay. Okay, now we're going to take up item number 7 as amended. All right? Do you have that written down? Can I see it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, it's the yellow express.
Do I just read the entire? No, you can just say vote as amended. Oh, okay. We'll now vote on the amended item number 7. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The item passes as amended. Our next item held from the consent agenda is item number 8. Approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CHE local purchasing and acquisition, vendor disclosures, and contracts, first reading. This item was held for discussion by board member Adam Ravon. May I have a motion? Is there a motion?
So I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'm abstaining from this.
Second?
I'll second it.
Nope.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Ravon, would you like to discuss this matter? It's item number 8.
I'm on the next one.
Mr. Ravon, can you hear me? Oh, we cannot hear you. Are you on, maybe on mute? Or maybe we can't hear you. Oh, you're muted, I think.
No further discussion.
Oh, go ahead. No further discussion. Okay, we will now vote on the motion to approve item number 8, approval to waive board policy. I'm sorry. Any other discussion? We'll now vote on the motion to approve item number 8, approval to waive board policy BF local board policies and approval of proposed revisions to board policy CHE local purchasing and acquisition, vendor disclosures and contracts, first reading. All in favor, please raise your hand. Adam, are you raising your hand over there? I can't see. Thank you. You may lower your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. The motion passes. The last item held from the consent agenda is item number 24, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. Project number 23-05-08-01. Cooperative Health Science Equipment and Supplies. This item is being held to allow for Paula Mendoza's abstention. May I have a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this matter? No. We will now vote on the motion to approve item number 24, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000, project number 23-05-08-01, Cooperative Health Science Equipment and Supplies. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. You may lower your hands. All opposed? Any abstentions, please raise your hand. Thank you, Ms. Mendoza. The motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting held on June 8th, 2023, the agenda review meeting held on June 15th, 2023, and the regular board meeting held on June 22nd, 2023?
Madam President, I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving June minutes, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. No opposed. Thank you. The motion passes. We are now ready to consider the remainder of tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the balance of tonight's agenda by consensus?
Madam President, I so move.
Is there a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Ravon, your hand is raised. Are you, I'm not sure if is that a vote?
I just hadn't fallen back down.
Okay, no worries. We will now vote on the motion to approve the balance of tonight's agenda by consensus. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All opposed, please raise your hand. The motion passes. We are now ready to hear reports and comments from any other board members. Starting with Ms. Bandy, any reports?
No.
Ms. Linder? Ms. Flowers?
Yes, I'd like to communicate to the board. 2 weeks ago, I attended the Texas Association of School Board summer planning meeting. So as of now, 100% of all the public schools in Texas are members of TASB. So they have been great supporters of HISD long term. And I just wanted to bring forth to everyone that September 29th is the state convention. And so we'd hope that we have great attendance from the board and from our superintendent so that we have that opportunity to learn together with other school boards across the state so that we make sure that we are focusing in on best practice.
Thank you. Any reports on this end?
Not a report. I just didn't get an opportunity to say thank you to the NRJOTC that participated today. It's a pleasure to have him here and involving our students.
Yes, I agree. Anything else? All right. Mr. Superintendent, any additional reports to us at this time? No, ma'am. Okay. The board will now adjourn to closed session under Chapter 551 of Texas Government Code, Open Meetings Act, subsections 551 through 551.089. Should board final action, vote, or decision... Ma'am, please. Should board final action, vote, or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action, vote, or decision shall be taken... Ma'am, that's ma'am in the blue shirt. Yes. Ma'am, please. I'm trying. Or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting or at a subsequent public meeting of the board upon notice thereof. The board has adjourned to a closed session at 7:38 p.m. on August 10th, 2023.